Go. All right, so welcome everybody. This is part 2 of our IEP series, talking about advocacy, some advocacy skills and strategies for working with your IEP team and helping to negotiate and advocate for your child. I do want to review a few things from our part 1 about advocacy basics. I think it's helpful for me to refresh this for myself as I'm learning about a new system that we're trying to navigate. So I understand more and educate myself about the system or more about my child, navigating through those school services and other services, helping me to learn then how I can advocate for my children. And then sometimes finding out when I've been navigating those systems and those pieces, finding out too that I want to even affect policy and look at legislation. But really what we're looking at, these basics of educating ourselves about our child and their disability, navigating the school system and being the best advocate we can for them in that school system. And I talked about last time, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So I wrote it down. This has been kind of a mantra to remember and thinking about in any setting. If somebody says something to us, or if we feel like a promise was made or something even uncomfortable was said, there may be times that we want to turn around and take some notes and document a conversation, creating a paper trail about things that you've heard and participated in, a conversation in the hallway with the teacher, a phone call from a principal. You can just jot down on the calendar, say it happened today on October 18th at 3:30, the principal called, and I can just write down a quick note on my calendar, TC, telephone call about recess. And then I start looking back on my calendar and I can see there's a pattern that the principal always calls on Tuesdays about recess. What's going on? And so the paper trail becomes my advocacy tool in that context. So the other piece about special education law and so much that we are looking at, the word special can make this feel awkward. And disability is a natural part of human diversity. The way that special education law was written didn't use the word special necessarily. We took the Americans with Disability Act and said, how do we apply this to our education system? That somebody's disability does not become a reason that they are not part of general education, that they are not included in their neighborhood school. And so what are those things that we do to accommodate so they can get to the school and participate and be involved, and what that we do within the school to do what they call specially designed instruction. And that's really, I think, where that word special got thrown in. And sometimes it doesn't always feel that special. So this piece about educating ourselves about the system and our child's disability, one of the things that you can do every time before you have an IEP meeting is look over, if you have an IEP already, look over that IEP and read through it and see, even in this sense here, what's the category that my child has been determined as eligible for specially designed instruction. This is one of the pieces of how to know what the school district is doing and how they've classified your student, this student, because the school's also got a certain mode of thinking. And so the category that they put a student in is not meant to pigeonhole them, but sometimes can change the way that the whole IEP team is looking at a student. And I know that this is something that I learned about when my child was moved from other health impairment into the autism category. And one of the things the team talked about was that meant that now even though they'd been eligible for speech services through the other health impairment, the autism category gave the school district the funding and the room to provide more support from a speech language pathologist who could do a consult. And that meant every month, the SLP could go into the classroom and make an observation and then give some tips and ideas to the teacher. So you don't have to memorize all that or know all the law, but just know that the category can change how the team views your child and what the services are that your child is then connected to. The biggest part about the IEP in terms of being able to come back to the school and say, I don't understand this, or can you show me more about this? The law is written all over that IEP. And I really go back to this basic statement about the individual education plan is individualized. It's very much reflected on the unique needs of Robert or Samantha or Taylor, and how are their unique needs going to be addressed so that Robert or Samantha or Taylor is going to be included in the classroom and make progress in the general ed curriculum. And so because that is on the very top of the page of your IEP, it's helpful to be able to look back at that and within the emotion of an IEP meeting or the concerns that you're having to be able to look at those words and then reflect that back to the rest of the team. What does that mean? Or how is that gonna meet the unique needs of my child? So I did show last time a little bit about some of these model forms so that you don't have to go and be, an attorney. And I'm gonna find the other one that I wanna show you. Oops, it's not that one. Let's see. There we go. This is what many IEPs look like. There's a lot of fine print on those. And I want you to be able to know that those words that define how the law works for your child are right here on this page. So these may be really useful for you to look at, highlight, underline, and think about how your child's strengths are defined, how much they're able to take what the needs are that they found in the evaluation, what they know about how that student is showing, their present levels of academics, and as well how they're functioning, what may be happening for them communication-wise, at recess, behaviorally, socially, all of those categories. So the form itself might be able to give you some of the words as you're trying to negotiate with the IEP team and address those concerns. So I'm going to go back to my other presentation. Sorry about that. How did it get lost there? Well, I completely lost it. So while you hang on for a minute, I am so sorry. That just fell into the abyss of my computer. And there we go. Okay, so thank you for your patience. I'll jump to this piece now. So yeah, the part about the law is written all over the IEP, and you can find some of those model forms of what an evaluation may look like, what an IEP looks like, to be able to have more information from that as well. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how I won't do the tic-tac-toe immediately. I will say this piece of, it is really okay for you to know and prepare before the IEP meeting by looking at the IEP, by reading over the evaluation, and pulling together your thoughts and your ideas. I really recommend that you think about, do you have like 3 top strategies, 3 top issues or ideas that you want to tackle with the IEP team? And even what you've been hearing from your family member, the student, or in phone calls or any information that's coming from the school. So in your preparation, to go ahead and make some notes and think about what are your issues and your strategies around those issues. And I like the idea of 3 because it does keep it simple. So one of those preparation pieces is doing that. Another preparation piece is acknowledging that this is emotional, and that's great. It gives you a lot of power and energy and passion about being at that IEP meeting, and you are not paid to be there. Everybody else who's there, it's their job. And that doesn't mean they don't care, but they don't care at the same level that you do. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of anybody who's an educator. It is a different connection that we have. And so you may cry before a meeting and during a meeting and after a meeting. You may feel incredibly angry and frustrated about the process. You may have a lot of emotions about that. And those are absolutely natural and completely understandable. So being able to acknowledge that to yourself and think about, okay, if I do get to one of those moments, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle that? You can ask to have a recess, to take a 5-minute break during an IEP meeting, because it's a lot of work for us as families, as parents, to show up to some of these meetings. One other way you might want to prepare is think about who else could go with me. Do I want my spouse to go? If I have a partner or a spouse who could do that, is there a neighbor, a friend, even a professional? It could be there's a childcare worker or an ABA therapist who you've worked with, who you'd like to have them attend the meeting with you. Another set of ears is so helpful at a meeting, because that set of ears is going in a different emotional state as well as intellectual state. And they may be able to hear things in a different way, or hear the rest of a comment or a statement, and help for you in processing that, and maybe in taking some notes during the meeting. And if you do have somebody to go with you, you may want to tell them about like your top 3 issues that you want to tackle. And then maybe what's your bottom line? If you have something that you feel like, if this happens or if that issue is brought up, this is where I'm at on that. And so you've really let this other person know how they can support you and connect with you and support your family member. They might, they're not an educational consultant. They may not have a lot of knowledge about your child as a student, but they do know what you've shared with them. And if you get to a place where they can turn to you and say, is that what you really wanted? Does this answer your questions? That may be helpful for you to have another person to do that. So having another person, another set of ears, and somebody to bounce ideas off. And I've been at IEP meetings where it felt very, very stressful, and we've asked for a 5-minute break. If it helps to go out and take a little walk, get some fresh air, just look at the IEP and not have some of that auditory input, that's another thing for you to be able to do. And just know that it is work. It is work. So when I talked about the tic-tac-toe, that might have sounded a little silly, but this is an idea of how could you take your 3 issues. How could you take your top strategies, your top topics that you want to address with the IEP team, and share that with them? And instead of playing poker with the IEP team, you're playing tic-tac-toe. It's a little more fun, I think. And there's even an advocacy article about that says, don't play poker, play hearts. And it's just that idea of how you're recognizing this relationship and having that honesty and transparency. So it's really okay to communicate to the team, these are my top 3 issues. These are the things that I want to be able to tackle together, and then see how that goes. And so we did make this little piece before of column 1 here is what you're asking for. So it could be you're asking for more time with the SLP, with the speech language pathologist. It could be that you're thinking about how can we get help with our math due to the grades or not getting homework turned in. So this column is for you to be able to know what your issues are that you want to bring forward, or those problems, and that you want to get an answer from the school from. So it really helps you to focus on that because there is so much. And then you can come back to this next piece of when we've gotten to that area in the IEP, or we haven't, but I brought up the question, how did the school answer? So if you asked for more time with SLP and the school answered no, then you get to write that down. And you can say, okay, I hear your answer. And as much as you feel stress or frustration about that, why are you being refused those kind of services from the school district? So you ask, why? What is the response to the school district? I know the answer is no, but tell me why. Help me to understand that. And you can even say, I need to go home and process this. I want to talk with the therapists. I need to share this with my spouse. But you're documenting an answer from the school district of why they're declining to provide some sort of service. And they could say something like, well, it's a staffing problem. There are not enough speech language pathologists that we have. So right now we just can't give more of that time. This gives you the room then to write a quick a quick email back to the school district. And you don't have to write a novel. You can just say, hey, I'm glad we met on October 18th. And I appreciate the time with the team. I have questions about why my child will not have more speech language pathology time because the staffing is low in the district. And I'm hoping that you can share more about that with me. And you can send that email to the teacher and the team, but you can also send it to, say, the principal, because the principal is working on staffing and the school district is working on staffing. So what you've done is you've documented the answer by the district that may not necessarily be the best answer or even legal. But the school district is supposed to find a way to provide for the needs that have been identified. And so if somebody is having a need for speech language pathology and articulation and not getting it, then that does mean that the school district is not providing that. And they're not following through on their obligation. So this is a way that in every meeting, you may be able to go back to 3 little things that you wrote down in the midst of the energy and the emotion to be able to say, okay, I want to go back to the information about math. We're not getting the math homework turned in. It's not getting finished. What can we do to help support the student with this need? And so then we think about what else the school can do. The school is obligated to try to meet an educational need and those functional needs, that those are on that front page of the IEP at present levels of performance. So again, you don't have to be the attorney or an educational consultant. You can go back to what information's been pulled together for the school district for you, and that becomes your ammunition. So I had one other thought about this too, in this, without trying to make you memorize too much. One of the other pieces that I learned is a word that's used in a lot of different contexts about something being smart. And so it's a little way to remember what a SMART IEP goal may be. So as we're looking at how the school district is defining some of those goals and looking at the students, what kind of progress they're going to be making with that, we want a goal to be very specific. We want it to be measurable, something that's measurable. I know that I think one of the things that's funny about a report card is your effort. Kids get a grade for effort. Now, how do you measure effort? Is effort measurable? I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that we can observe some things, but really, is effort measurable? So that's, I'm not trying to be a smarty pants about it, smart being the funny word, but is something very specific and is something measurable that we're trying to help the student to be able to show their skill and gain in their knowledge of something. A SMART IEP goal is going to use action words, particularly what's the action by the student? What action are we trying to get, an outcome for that student? It needs to be realistic. I think I shared last time that there was a student where we knew in their present levels of performance that they weren't able to put on shoes and socks. And so that was one of their needs and one of their functional descriptions. So giving somebody an IEP goal that is to learn to tie shoes might not be realistic, because we go back to looking at the needs, looking at the present levels of performance. So is a goal realistic for that student? And the other piece is it time limited? Do we, are we looking, we're going to do this for the next year, and during the next year, we're going to get together again in 3 months and in 6 months and take a look at how the student is making progress towards that goal. That then the time limit becomes, again, an advocacy piece in terms of negotiating with the school district and coming back and saying, they're not making progress towards this goal, and let's talk about why and what else can we do about that. So SMART may be helpful for you to think about in the midst of all of that. I did hear from a special education professor about they have an idea that it's not a good IEP goal if a dead person can do it. And that really, I think that looks like behavior. So an IEP goal, that's something about like, Thomas will not climb up on the chimney and slide down like he's Santa Claus. That's something that that you wouldn't want to do. But if Thomas will refrain from climbing up on the roof and not sliding down the chimney, that's something a dead person could do. They could not do that. And so thinking about how that could be reversed are we trying to eliminate a behavior? And in that elimination, is there anything really that we can observe and that we can measure in that way? So if somebody can achieve an IEP goal by not doing something, that's not really a great IEP goal. So one of the other pieces is just the part about being in an IEP meeting, and there's so many people talking, and they may be reading the IEP to you. You are really welcome to, again, ask people to speak one at a time, to ask if you can have a 5-minute break, and ask for somebody to be able to come with you to the meeting. That matters. You as a parent are going to be the most constant, regular, dependable advocates throughout your child's entire educational time period here. And so that's the piece that they may have different teachers every year, even a different principal. And so the consistency and the understanding and the dependability of you showing up and knowing about your student and being able to advocate for them and that means talking sometimes about those needs again and coming back to how is the district going to meet these needs that we talked about to be able to address those, and so your student can in fact learn and grow in what the general ed curriculum is, and in specially designed instruction as well. So let's see, oh, that was the wrong one. Sorry about that. I love that we're recording this too, because now we can watch me skip around on these things. So the SMART IEP goals: specific, measurable, action words, realistic, and time limited. Those, hopefully that is something that can stick in your head too, or it could be that some of the educators you're working with are also familiar with those. So what I wanted to do is, I'll go ahead and click stop recording.